It started with a letter. Not an email. Not a friendly knock. A laminated letter, taped right to my mailbox like a scarlet mark of shame. Notice of violation. Unauthorized use of common property. Common property. That's what they called it. But the so-called common property was the lake that ran behind my house. The same lake I paid extra for when I bought this place. The same lake my dad taught me to fish in when I was 10. Now apparently, according to the HOA, I was trespassing on my own backyard. I remember just standing there, morning coffee in one hand, reading that notice while the steam curled up into the cold air. For a moment I actually laughed. I thought it was a prank. But then I saw the signature. Linda Crow, HOA president. Linda Crow didn't believe in humor. She believed in rules. If oxygen was on the bylaws, she'd probably fine people for breathing too loudly. By noon, I'd already gotten 2 texts from neighbors. Hey, I saw the notice. What happened? You okay, man? Linda's on a power trip again. Apparently, Linda had called an emergency board meeting about my violation. Emergency. Because I had cast a fishing line into a lake that touches my property. I decided to show up. Not invited, of course, but I figured if they were talking about me, I might as well be there. The meeting was held in the clubhouse, which, if you've ever been to one, looks like someone tried to mix a courtroom and a funeral home. Beige walls, plastic plants, fluorescent lights that make everyone look slightly undead. Linda sat at the head of the table, wearing her usual tight smile, the kind that doesn't reach her eyes. Beside her was her sidekick, Paul, who never spoke but always nodded like a bobblehead. Mr. Carson, Linda began, without looking up from her clipboard. You've been found in violation of Article 7, Section 3. Unauthorized use of HOA-owned property. HOA-owned. I repeated. You mean my backyard? Linda's smile didn't budge. The lake and all adjoining banks are community property, regardless of individual lot lines. I blinked. Linda, the lake's edge literally cuts through my property survey. I own that strip of land. She gave a little sniff. We'll need to verify that with our records. In the meantime, we're issuing a $200 fine and a temporary restriction from lake access. Restriction? That means, she said sweetly, you are not permitted to fish, kayak, or even step foot on the bank until the matter is reviewed. I just stared at her. So, you're banning me from walking on my own land? That's correct. There was a pause. Even Paul looked uncomfortable. Then I smiled. Got it. See you around, Linda. By the time I got home, I was fuming. My wife, Sarah, took one look at me and sighed. What did she do this time? She banned me from the lake, I said flatly. Sarah blinked. Our lake. Apparently, it's hers now. She laughed, a short, incredulous laugh. Oh, this is going to be good. We had history with Linda. Everyone did. She'd fine a guy for painting his mailbox too blue. She'd threatened to tow a teenager's car for parking too diagonally. And now she'd set her sights on me, probably because I was the only one who ever argued with her at meetings. But this wasn't about money or power. This was about control. Linda loved control more than caffeine, and she wasn't about to let anyone, especially me, challenge her authority. So I did what any rational adult would do. I spent the next 6 hours digging through property records. When I found the original land deed, I swear my pulse jumped. It clearly showed that the edge of the lake, about 20 feet from the waterline, was part of my parcel. Meaning, the HOA had no jurisdiction. I scanned the deed, printed copies, highlighted every relevant line, and stapled them like evidence for a murder trial. Sarah peeked into my office around midnight. You look like you're plotting a coup. I grinned. Worse. I'm planning to embarrass a Karen. The next morning, I walked straight to Linda's house. She lived 4 doors down, in a perfectly symmetrical beige fortress, with no soliciting signs everywhere. She opened the door wearing her HOA lanyard at 8 a.m., like it was a badge of honor. Mr. Carson, she said, clearly annoyed. I hope this is important. Oh, it is, I said. I just wanted to drop off some light reading. I handed her the packet. What's this? Proof, I said. that you fine me for being on my own property. So, unless you want to be the subject of my next call to the county assessor's office, I'd suggest you withdraw that violation." Her smile flickered. "Just for a moment. Mr. Carson," she said coolly, "will review it. But as of now, the fine stands." I stepped closer. "Then I hope you're ready to explain that to your lawyer." For the first time, she looked unsure. Then she slammed the door. I thought that would be the end of it. But that's the thing about people like Linda, they don't stop when they're wrong. They double down. That afternoon, I got another letter. Notice of escalation. Continued noncompliance. Failure to remit payment will result in further legal action and potential lien placement. I laughed. Loudly. Because at that point, it wasn't about the lake anymore. It was war. Linda escalates her attack with legal threats, and Carson decides he's done playing defense. The next morning, I brewed my coffee extra strong, not because I needed caffeine, but because I needed focus. Linda wanted war? She'd get it. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, surrounded by printouts like a crime investigator in a true crime docuseries. Sarah leaned against the counter, holding her mug. "You're doing the face again." "What face?" "The one that means you're about to do something petty and possibly brilliant." She wasn't wrong. First step. Information. I started combing through every public HOA document I could find, meeting minutes, budgets, tax filings. Most were uploaded to the community website, hidden behind a very weak password. Lakeview 123. Security clearly wasn't Linda's strong suit. That's where I found it. A line item in the financial report that didn't make sense. Maintenance expenditure, $8,200 dock repair. Except, there wasn't a dock repair. The dock looked exactly the same as it had for years. Interesting. I made a note. That afternoon, I walked the neighborhood, casual, calm, waving at folks. It's funny how once someone stands up to an HOA, people start whispering. Mrs. Patel from down the street stopped me near her roses. "Did you really get fined for fishing?" "Oh yeah," I said. "Apparently water is forbidden unless you're Linda." She rolled her eyes. "That woman fined me for hanging wind chimes. Said they were auditory clutter." By the time I got home, I'd spoken to 5 neighbors, all with their own Linda horror stories. Mailbox height, grass length, fence color. One guy got cited because his dog's leash was too bright. A pattern was forming, and in that pattern I saw my way in. That evening, I printed a sign and taped it to my garage door. Community meeting, concerned residents of Lakeview, Saturday at 4 p.m. Coffee, snacks, and actual sanity provided. By Saturday, I had 12 people in my driveway, folding chairs set up like it was a neighborhood therapy session. I stood up front with my deed in one hand and my laptop in the other. "All right, folks," I said, "I know most of you have felt the wrath of our beloved HOA president. But what if I told you she's been fining people illegally and spending our dues on things that don't exist?" They murmured. Heads turned. I clicked open the financial file and projected it onto my garage wall with a portable projector. "See this $8,200 charge for dock repair? Never happened. This $3,000 for event cleanup? Also never happened. And I checked, our HOA accountant quit last year. Linda's been handling the books solo." The crowd went silent. Then Mr. Jenkins, the retired Navy guy, muttered, "That's embezzlement." I smiled. Exactly. Of course, we couldn't just accuse her without proof. So we came up with a plan. We'd request a full audit of HOA finances under state law, which every member had a right to do. And while we were at it, we'd start collecting every violation notice, every fine, every absurd rule she'd ever handed out. We'd build a paper trail so long it could wrap around her beige fortress twice. That night, I got another letter, but this one wasn't from the HOA. It was a small, handwritten envelope slipped under my door. No stamp. Inside was a single line. "Be careful. Linda's not just stubborn, she's scared." No signature. I read it 3 times, then looked at Sarah. "She's scared of what?" Sarah frowned. "Maybe what you'll find." Sunday morning, I decided to push harder. I called the county assessor's office and asked for the HOA's official property boundary records. When they emailed me the map, I stared at it for a full minute, jaw open. Turns out, the HOA didn't technically own the lake at all. It was registered under a private developer trust that was supposed to transfer ownership after completion of the community. Except, that transfer never happened. Meaning, the HOA was enforcing rules on property it didn't even own. That was my golden ticket. By Monday, I had everything ready. I printed the county documents, stapled them to my audit request, and hand-delivered the packet to Linda's house. She opened the door just as I slid it into her mailbox. Her expression froze. "Mr. Carson, you're harassing me now." "Actually," I said, "I'm exercising my rights as a dues-paying member of the HOA you apparently don't legally control." Her eyes twitched. "Excuse me?" "Oh, and by the way," I added, "a few of us are requesting an independent audit. Should be fun to see where all that doc money went." She went pale. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I said with a grin. "But at least it's my own mistake, on my own land." That evening, Sarah and I sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the forbidden lake. "Think she'll cave?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "People like Linda don't cave. They crack. Slowly. Loudly." And right on cue, my phone buzzed with an email from the HOA's lawyer. "Effective immediately, Mr. Carson is suspended from all community meetings pending review of conduct violations." I laughed. "She's trying to silence me." Sarah smirked. "Then speak louder." The next morning, my concerned residents group chat exploded. Linda had apparently sent everyone a formal notice calling me a disruptive influence. So I sent back something better, a screenshot of the county's property record, highlighted in bright yellow, showing the HOA had no claim to the lake. Within an hour, half the neighborhood had forwarded it. And that's when I knew the tide was turning. Because power in an HOA isn't just about rules, it's about perception. And Linda's iron grip was starting to rust. The neighborhood begins to rally behind Carson, and cracks appear in Linda's control, but she's not done yet. In part 3, she fights back dirty, and a hidden secret about the HOA finally comes out. You can tell when a storm's coming, not from thunder, but from silence. That's what it felt like the next few days. No more morning jogs from Linda, no more clipboard parades. Just quiet. Too quiet. Then one morning, I saw a white SUV idling down the street. Tinted windows. HOA decal on the side. When I walked out with my coffee, it rolled away, slow, like it wanted me to know I'd been seen. By noon, I got the next letter. Certified mail this time. Real official looking. Notice of violation. Unauthorized structure on common property. Common property. They were calling my backyard shed common. Sarah just laughed. "They're desperate now." Desperate, I said, and dumb. Because taped right to the top of that notice was a map, their map. The one showing my land as part of the community zone. Except they'd redrawn the boundaries. In marker. Not even printed. Marker. That's when I realized it wasn't just arrogance anymore, it was fraud. I drove straight to the county recorder's office. "Can you check this parcel number?" I asked the clerk, sliding over my deed and the HOA's fake map. She typed for a second, then frowned. "That's odd. Someone filed a reclassification request on your parcel last week." "Filed by who?" She turned her screen toward me. "Lakeview HOA. Signed by Jolene Granger." I almost laughed. "So now they're forging land designations?" She raised an eyebrow. "You want to file a counterclaim?" "Lady," I said, "I want to file a bombshell." That night, I scanned every document I had, deed, boundary map, permits, letters, and sent the whole file to my lawyer. Ben's one of those quiet types who doesn't talk much, but when he does, people listen. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Ben, you're sitting on a gold mine. This isn't a civil issue anymore. This is criminal. Don't talk to them again. We'll handle it." Next morning, I came outside to find someone had nailed a sign into my lawn. "Construction halted. Under investigation." Official looking, with the HOA logo stamped in the corner. Sarah stepped out onto the porch. You see that? Oh, I see it, I said, pulling the sign out of the ground. And I'm framing it. Because the more they pushed, the more obvious it became, they weren't defending the rules anymore. They were defending themselves. 2 days later, my neighbor Denise showed up with a folder. Got something you might want to see, she said. Inside were copies of her HOA letters, same handwriting, same signature. And get this, different violation codes, same fine amounts. Cut and paste fraud. We compared notes and realized something else. The payment addresses didn't match the HOA's listed P.O. box. They went to a private mailbox registered to NP Holdings, LLC. Who's that? Denise asked. I looked it up. The company was registered under one name, Nathan Price, HOA's Architectural Compliance Officer. That's when the dominoes started falling. I handed everything, every map, every letter, every fake charge, to the county real estate fraud department. 3 days later, I got a call from a woman named Alina Mendez. Mr. Carson, she said, we've been waiting for someone like you. You just helped us connect 3 separate complaints against your HOA. Same people, same signatures. She sounded almost excited, then serious. We'll need statements, and we'll need to see this through. Are you ready for that? I didn't even hesitate. Let's bring them down. That week, county investigators quietly started showing up around the neighborhood. Plain clothes, taking photos of notices, comparing dates. One even asked to borrow my drone footage. Apparently, the HOA had repurposed community maintenance funds into personal backyard improvements. Linda's backyard, to be exact. Brand new gazebo. Custom stone path. Fancy lighting. All maintenance. By now, word had spread. My little concerned residents group had doubled in size. Then tripled. People came forward with stories of harassment, threats, even fines for unapproved holiday decorations. Every one of those letters had Nathan Price's signature. And in the middle of it all, Linda had gone silent. Until one night, just after midnight, I heard footsteps in my driveway. Grabbed the porch light. No one there, but a fresh set of tire marks on the curb and a torn HOA envelope near my truck. Inside, one sentence written in messy ink. You don't know what you're doing. Stop before it gets worse. That's when I realized this wasn't just about power. This was about exposure. They were hiding something big. 2 days later, my phone rang again. Alina's voice was calm, but sharp. Mr. Carson, we've confirmed forged county documents. Signatures from officials who retired years ago. Your HOA's under formal investigation for real estate fraud. I leaned back in my chair, stunned. So, what happens now? She replied, we're calling a public hearing. You'll want to be there. That's how, 2 weeks later, I found myself standing in the packed community clubhouse, cameras flashing, neighbors filling every seat. Alina stood at the front, her badge glinting under the fluorescence. She turned to the board. You've been submitting false property documents, fabricating fines, and pocketing community funds. Nathan tried to speak, but she cut him off. Mr. Price, your LLC has received over $60,000 from these so-called maintenance fees. That's fraud. And Ms. Granger, the reclassification forms? Forged. We confirmed it. The room went dead silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. And suddenly, the place erupted. By the end of that week, the county froze the HOA's accounts. Linda, Nathan, and the HOA lawyer were suspended pending charges. When I walked home from that hearing, Denise yelled across the street, Hey, Carson, think they'll fine us for celebrating? I laughed. Only if we don't invite them to jail first. But I knew it wasn't over. Because people like Linda, they don't just vanish. They plot. And as much as we'd exposed, something about that torn letter still haunted me. You don't know what you're doing. What else were they hiding? The night after the hearing, I barely slept. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts, calls, emails. Neighbors thanking me, reporters asking for quotes, strangers online calling me, that HOA guy who fought back. It felt surreal. 1 week ago, I was just a guy building a backyard office. Now, I was the face of a neighborhood rebellion. By morning, the story had hit local news. Homeowner uncovers HOA fraud scheme in Lakeview Estates. The thumbnail was me standing in my driveway, half smiling, half annoyed, and right behind me, the half-built office they'd tried to stop. At first, I thought it had calmed down after the news cycle. But then I saw them on TV. Linda, Nathan, their lawyer, Rusk, all sitting stiff in an interview with a local station, spinning it like they were the victims. Linda leaned forward, hands clasped, face painted with fake concern. "This is a misunderstanding," she said. "We've always acted in the community's best interest. Some individuals have misinterpreted our actions." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Misinterpreted," I muttered. "Lady, you forged county maps." Nathan jumped in, his voice oily smooth. "These are baseless accusations. The so-called evidence is being taken out of context. We intend to fight this." And Rusk, the lawyer, smiled like a snake. "We'll be filing defamation claims against those spreading misinformation." Sarah muted the TV and looked at me. "They're not going down quietly, are they?" "No," I said, "but they're already falling." That afternoon, I got a call from Alina, the investigator. "They went on record?" "Perfect. That'll make the discovery phase fun." "Discovery?" "Yep," she said, grinning through the phone. "That means emails, texts, meeting minutes. All of it." Meanwhile, the neighborhood was buzzing. People who used to be scared to speak up were suddenly showing up at my door with boxes of old HOA letters, receipts, even photos of repairs that were never done. Denise brought one that nearly made me spit out my drink. A maintenance invoice for $3,000 to replace a streetlight that never existed. The vendor? NP Holdings again. A few nights later, someone knocked on my door. It was Harold Kim, the HOA treasurer. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. I nodded, motioned him toward the kitchen. He sat down, clasped his hands, eyes darting like a man rehearsing confession. "Carson, I didn't sign any of those forms," he said. "They used my name. The map? The fines? They forged my signature." I leaned back. "You're telling me you're innocent?" He nodded. "I swear it. And they told me if I didn't back them up, they'd blame me for everything." He slid a flash drive across the table. "Emails," he said. "Meeting recordings. Everything." Then he stood, looked me dead in the eye. "Do what you have to. Just protect my family." The next morning, I sent that drive straight to Alina. An hour later, she called me back. "You have no idea what you just gave us," she said. "We're talking racketeering, embezzlement, wire fraud. This isn't an HOA case anymore. This is a criminal enterprise." The fallout was immediate. News vans lined the street. Neighbors stood outside with coffee cups, watching as county investigators hauled out boxes from the HOA office. Someone yelled, "Guess that community fund wasn't for landscaping." Everyone laughed, nervously at first, then louder. For the first time, people weren't afraid of the board. But the board wasn't done swinging. 2 days later, I got served a lawsuit. Defamation and interference with HOA operations. Filed by Linda Granger personally. Sarah blinked at the paperwork. "They're suing you? After being caught?" "Classic bully move," I said. "They think fear still works." Ben, my lawyer, laughed when I showed him. "Defamation? They can't sue you for telling the truth. And since they're under criminal investigation, they just handed us a gift." The next hearing was chaos. Reporters packed the hall. Neighbors sat behind me, whispering. Linda's team tried to argue I'd damaged community morale. Ben countered by projecting the fake maps onto a massive screen. "Your Honor," he said, "if community morale means stealing land, then my client's guilty of saving the neighborhood." Even the judge cracked a smile. Linda's lawyer objected 3 times. All overruled. Then Ben dropped the hammer, Harold's flash drive. Every email, every document, showing Linda and Nathan discussing how to maximize fines, delay complaints, and intimidate dissenters. The room gasped. Linda's jaw clenched so tight, I thought her teeth might crack. When we left that courtroom, the cameras were waiting. A reporter asked, "Mr. Carson, what do you want to say to the HOA board?" I looked right into the lens. "Next time you threaten someone's home, make sure you actually own yours." That clip went viral. 2 million views in 3 days. Comments poured in, people sharing their own HOA horror stories, cheering, donating to legal funds, even sending coffee. And then, the DA called. "Carson, we're moving forward with charges," Alina said. "Fraud, conspiracy, and elder financial abuse. We'll need you to testify." I nodded slowly. "Tell me when." The next few weeks were a blur. The HOA office was shuttered. Linda's house went dark. Blinds closed, car gone. Nathan tried to resign for health reasons. Didn't work. The county froze their accounts. Neighbors started organizing on their own. Barbecues, cleanup days, even movie nights on the green. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt alive. Denise laughed one evening, holding up her lemonade. Who'd have thought peace would come after war? I smiled. Sometimes you have to burn down the old clubhouse to build a better one. But the best part came a week later, a knock on my door. Officer Daniels, same guy from that first morning, stood there, smiling. "You'll want to come outside for this," he said. I stepped out. Down the street, 3 black SUVs were parked near the HOA office. Linda and Nathan were being let out in handcuffs. Reporters shouted. Neighbors cheered. It was like watching the finale of a show I didn't realize I'd been starring in. Daniels grinned. "You really did it. You bought the HOA with justice." As they drove away, Denise called out from across the lawn. "Hey, Carson. Think they'll fine us for noise?" I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. Let 'em try. The day after the arrests, the neighborhood was quiet, not tense quiet, but peaceful quiet. For the first time in years, no one was checking for rule violations, no one measuring grass height, no one sneaking photos of mailboxes. Just laughter. Kids on bikes. Sprinklers running past allowed hours. It felt like the place could finally breathe again. A few days later, the county called an emergency town meeting. The board seats were officially vacated. The HOA charter had to be rewritten, and someone needed to oversee the transition. When I walked into that hall, the same people who once whispered about me now stood and clapped. Denise shouted from the back, "Let the man who exposed it run it." I laughed, hands up. Trust me, the last thing I ever wanted was to be the HOA. But Sarah elbowed me. "Maybe the best way to stop abuse is to take the chair yourself." So I agreed. Temporarily. Just until we cleaned it all up. Alina helped draft the new charter. Full financial transparency. Rotating leadership every 6 months. Public votes. Open records. No more secret meetings. No more fines from the shadows. It wasn't just a homeowners association anymore. It was a neighborhood council. Then one morning I got a letter in the mail. At first, my chest tightened. That old fear. But this time, it wasn't laminated or threatening. It was from the county courthouse. Notice of restitution. $182,400 awarded to affected homeowners. Linda and Nathan's properties were being liquidated. Every stolen cent, going back to the people they'd robbed. I read it twice. Then 3 times. Sarah smiled. Guess they're the ones paying HOA dues now. A few weeks later, I stood on the dock, the same one where all this began. The lake shimmered gold in the sunset. A soft breeze rippled across the water. I heard laughter. Neighbors setting up for a freedom barbecue, as Denise called it. Kids running around with glow sticks. For once, this was the community we'd always wanted. I sat down on the dock, coffee in hand, and thought back to that first letter, the violation notice. They said I was using common property without permission. Now, the irony hit hard. I owned that lake. Literally. During the investigation, the county discovered that the lake deed, the one Linda used to threaten me, had never been properly transferred. When the HOA collapsed, I quietly bought it through a public auction. Now the lake was officially private property, mine. Open to everyone who lived there as long as I said so. So I had a new sign made. Same post.
Same spot by the dock.
But this one read, common property, by the people, for the people. No Karen zone. Sarah laughed so hard she cried. Denise took a photo and framed it in the clubhouse. Months passed. The neighborhood thrived. Property values went up, but so did morale. We had movie nights on the green, weekend markets, charity drives. And every time someone new moved in, they heard the story of how the HOA tried to take one man's lake and ended up losing everything instead. Then one night, as we sat by the water, Sarah asked, "Do you ever miss the chaos?" I chuckled. Not even a little. But then I looked out at the lake, the calm water reflecting the stars,
and smiled.
though sometimes, I said, I almost wish they'd try it again.
She grinned.
Why? So I could send them the same letter. I raised my mug. To Linda Granger, wherever community service has her cleaning gutters.
We laughed.
And as fireworks cracked in the distance, the camera would have pulled back, showing the neighborhood alive, free, whole again. Final line, cinematic outro. They tried to fine me for enjoying the lake, so I bought the HOA and gave it back to everyone they tried to control.